These lines are visible only from an airplane, but airplanes didn't exist when they were drawn. Across the Nazca Desert, over 800 perfectly straight lines stretch up to 50 kilometers, carved with precision that defies hand tools and ground-level perspective. Today, we'll see a temple relief that looks unsettlingly like an electric lamp, complete with filament and socket, carved 2,000 years before Edison. We'll show you fortress walls where 360-ton blocks fit together with gaps thinner than a human hair, joints so tight that modern engineers can't replicate them. Somewhere beneath the Turkish plateau, an 18-level city descends 85 meters underground, ventilated by shafts whose engineering still baffles architects. And at the end, you'll discover why the world's heaviest carved stone, 1,600 tons of shaped granite, was left abandoned in its quarry. A mystery that turns Roman engineering triumph into someone else's unfinished riddle. We begin our descent. These massive figures are invisible to anyone standing on the ground, yet they were etched into the desert floor long before the invention of flight. The Nazca lines in southern Peru represent a geometric paradox that challenges the known technological limits of the first millennium. Spanning a vast plateau of 450 square kilometers, these geoglyphs include over 800 straight lines, some extending for 50 kilometers across the rugged terrain without a single deviation. The precision of these markings is so absolute that modern surveyors using satellite technology find errors of less than 1/10 of a degree over several miles. From the surface, a traveler sees only shallow trenches where the dark iron oxide-coated pebbles have been removed to reveal the lighter sand beneath. The true nature of the landscape only emerges from an altitude of several hundred meters, where chaotic paths resolve into perfect trapezoids, spirals, and massive biological forms. The sheer scale of the project suggests a level of coordination and spatial planning that seems impossible for a culture limited to ground-level observation. Archaeologists have struggled to explain how ancient engineers maintained such perfect linearity over hills and valleys without a point of reference in the sky. The soil here is exceptionally dry and windless, which has preserved the edges of the lines for nearly 2,000 years, making them look as if they were drawn yesterday. Some theories suggest the use of complex cord and stake systems, yet the mathematical complexity required to scale a small sketch into a kilometer-long figure remains an unsolved mystery. The lines do not lead to water sources or ancient settlements, instead cutting through the wasteland with surgical intent. Infrared scans show that the earth beneath the lines is more compacted than the surrounding soil, indicating that these paths were trodden by thousands of people during rituals that no one could fully witness from the earth. The desert floor acts as a giant chalkboard where the equations of an unknown science are written in stone and sand. The total length of all the lines combined exceeds 1,300 kilometers, representing a labor force of millions of man-hours dedicated to a gallery that was meant to be seen only by the clouds. Deep inside the narrow underground crypts of the Hathor Temple in Dendera, stone reliefs display objects that appear to defy the technological capabilities of the 1st century before Christ. These carvings, hidden away from the main halls in cramped chambers, depict figures holding massive transparent vessels that closely resemble oversized incandescent light bulbs. Each glass-like bulb stretches nearly 1 meter in length, containing a wavy, serpent-like line that flows from a lotus flower base connected to what looks like a braided cable leading to a central pillar. The precision of the carvings suggests a specific technical function rather than a purely decorative motif, as the internal filament follows a trajectory identical to modern electrical discharge tubes. While mainstream archaeology dates these structures to approximately 50 years before the Common Era, the level of detail in the hardware depicted remains an unexplained anomaly in the historical record. The crypts themselves are small, airless spaces where the use of traditional torches would have quickly consumed the oxygen and left thick layers of soot on the ceilings. Yet the surfaces here remain remarkably clean and untouched by carbon deposits. This absence of smoke residue has fueled theories that the temple builders possessed a flameless source of illumination, a concept that predates the invention of the modern light bulb by nearly 2,000 years. The relief shows the bulb resting on a jed pillar, an ancient symbol of stability that bears a striking resemblance to high-voltage insulators used in contemporary power grids. Scientists note that the proportions of the depicted device match the requirements for a Crookes tube, a vacuum vessel capable of producing light through ionized gases. The way the figures support the heavy transparent bulbs suggests a tangible physical weight, reinforcing the idea that these were not mere metaphors, but physical tools used by the priesthood. The complexity of the scene includes a small kneeling figure at the far end, perhaps a technician or observer, watching the glowing filament as it extends through the chamber. Even the texture of the stone seems to emphasize the smooth, reflective surface of the glass against the coarse, braided appearance of the power source. Modern electrical engineers have pointed out that the entire composition mirrors a functional circuit diagram, where the lotus serves as a socket and the serpent represents the flow of energy. Official Egyptology maintains that these images are purely symbolic, representing the god Harsamptis emerging from a lotus flower in the form of a snake, a mythological depiction of the rising sun. Yet, this theological explanation fails to account for why the sun god is encased in a transparent vessel, or why he is connected to an external energy source via a thick, flexible conduit. The mystery persists because the visual evidence aligns too closely with modern physics to be dismissed as a simple artistic coincidence, leaving the true purpose of the Dendera lamps locked within the silent stone walls of the crypt. Spanish chronicler Garcilaso de la Vega wrote in the 16th century that this fortress seemed to be the work of demons rather than men, because the scale of the construction defied any rational explanation known to the European mind. Sacsayhuaman sits high above the city of Cusco in the Peruvian Andes at an altitude of 3,700 meters, presenting a structural paradox that modern engineering still struggles to categorize within the technological limits of the 15th century. The massive defensive walls are composed of limestone blocks arranged in a complex polygonal pattern where every stone features multiple irregular angles that lock perfectly into its neighbors. The precision of these joints is so extreme that the gap between boulders weighing dozens of tons is less than 0.5 millimeters, a distance too small for a single blade of grass or a sheet of paper to penetrate. Unlike Roman or Egyptian structures that rely on mortar or standardized rectangular bricks, these fortifications consist of unique, interlocking shapes that resemble a giant three-dimensional puzzle carved from solid rock. The largest individual block in the lower tier stands over 9 meters tall and weighs approximately 360 tons, which is equivalent to the mass of 2 blue whales or a fleet of heavy transport trucks. Moving such a weight across the rugged Andean terrain would be a monumental task today. Yet, the Inca managed to transport these stones from quarries located several kilometers away, crossing steep ravines and mountain slopes. The surface of the stones shows a smooth, almost vitrified finish at the edges, suggesting a method of shaping that allowed the rock to be molded or ground with surgical accuracy. When viewed from above, The zigzag patterns of the walls stretch for over 400 meters, creating a jagged silhouette against the thin mountain air. There are no tool marks, no traces of iron chisels, and no evidence of the sophisticated cranes that would be necessary to lift and position a 300-ton monolith with millimeter precision. The sheer scale of the labor required to achieve this level of fit across hundreds of individual stones suggests a mastery of geometry and physics that does not appear in the written record of the era. Every corner is rounded with a soft, organic flow that makes the massive wall look as though it grew out of the earth rather than being built upon it. Even after 5 centuries of earthquakes that leveled colonial Spanish buildings in Cusco, the walls of Sacsayhuaman remain unmoved, their interlocking design absorbing the seismic energy without a single stone falling out of place. No known experiment using wooden rollers, hemp ropes, or bronze tools has successfully replicated the seamless integration of these colossal blocks on such a vertical landscape. The logistics of feeding and coordinating the thousands of workers needed for such a feat remains a mystery, as does the specific technique used to calculate the complex angles of the stones before they were moved into their final positions. While traditional theories suggest the use of large stone hammers and friction, the mathematical probability of achieving a zero-gap fit across thousands of square meters of wall remains statistically impossible for primitive tools. The site stands as a silent witness to a lost architectural language, where the laws of gravity and the hardness of stone were manipulated through methods that remain entirely invisible to modern archaeology. Despite decades of study, not a single physical plan or blueprint has ever been recovered to explain how a civilization without the wheel managed to elevate 360-ton blocks to a mountain summit. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean stands a city that logically should not exist. Nan Madol occupies a remote corner of Pohnpei in the Federated States of Micronesia, consisting of nearly 100 artificial islets constructed directly upon a coral reef. While most ancient settlements grew organically near fresh water or fertile soil, this massive stone complex rose from the waves through a feat of engineering that defies the technological limitations of the 13th century. The scale of the construction is staggering. The site contains approximately 750,000 tons of basalt. Each islet serves as a foundation for towering walls and platforms built from enormous hexagonal basalt columns. Some of these volcanic pillars weigh as much as 50 tons, yet they are stacked with a precision that suggests a highly organized and advanced workforce. The visual profile of the city is dominated by these dark, heavy, geometric shapes, contrasted against the turquoise lagoons and shifting tides. From above, the layout resembles a complex network of canals and stone fortresses, a labyrinthine Venice of the Pacific carved from solid rock. The sheer volume of material used here creates a landscape of dense, vertical textures and deep shadows that seem out of place in such a secluded, tropical environment. What deepens the mystery is the origin of the building material itself. The closest basalt quarries are located on the opposite side of the island, nearly 30 kilometers away. To reach Nan Madol, the ancient builders had to transport thousands of massive stones across rugged jungle terrain, or navigate them through the open ocean and treacherous coral reefs. Local legends speak of twin sorcerers who levitated the stones into place, a narrative that persists simply because no practical explanation satisfies the logistical reality of moving 50-ton blocks without wheels, pulleys, or metal tools. Scientists have attempted to model the transport using rafts and ropes, but the weight of the basalt often exceeds the buoyancy of any local timber available at the time. The silence of the ruins is heavy, broken only by the sound of water rushing through the narrow channels between the islets. Even today, the precise methods used to lift these pillars to heights of 15 meters remain a subject of intense academic debate. the city was abandoned long before European contact, leaving behind a silent monument to a civilization that mastered maritime logistics on a scale unseen anywhere else in the region. The sheer density of the basalt walls creates an atmosphere of permanence and isolation, as if the city were designed to withstand the ocean for eternity. This labyrinth of stone serves as the most enigmatic ruin complex in the entire Pacific Basin, officially recognized by UNESCO as a site of profound and unsolved historical significance.
The walls
3,000 stones stand in perfect alignment across the fields of Brittany, forming parallel rows that stretch for more than 4 kilometers. This is the Carnac complex, a prehistoric architectural marvel that predates the Egyptian pyramids and appears far too mathematically precise for the Neolithic era. Long before the invention of the wheel or advanced surveying tools, an unknown civilization transported and positioned thousands of granite blocks with a level of geometric accuracy that continues to baffle modern researchers. The sheer scale of the site is overwhelming, as the rows of menhirs cut through the landscape in straight paths that ignore the natural contours of the terrain. Each stone was carefully selected and placed to form a massive grid that functions like a giant lithic computer. Yet the identity of the builders remains a profound mystery. The alignment of these stones is not random, as the rows correspond exactly to the sunrise positions during the solstices and equinoxes, suggesting a deep understanding of celestial mechanics. Achieving such precision would have required centuries of consistent astronomical observation and a complex system of measurement that historians previously thought did not exist 6,000 years ago. The landscape is dominated by gray granite pillars, some reaching heights of 6 meters, standing like silent sentinels in the misty French countryside. The largest individual monument in the region, the now fallen Great Menhir of Er Gra, originally stood 20 meters tall and weighed approximately 350 tons. Moving a block of that magnitude across the rugged terrain of ancient France would be a significant engineering challenge even by today's standards. Yet it was accomplished by people who supposedly relied on stone tools and wooden rollers. The surface of the stones is weathered and covered in pale lichen, but their deliberate arrangement remains unmistakable against the green backdrop of the Atlantic coast. While popular history often focuses on later megalithic sites, Carnac represents a much older and more expansive application of prehistoric science. The mathematical consistency of the rows suggests that the builders possessed a standardized unit of measurement, a concept that implies a centralized social structure and shared scientific knowledge across generations. Every sunrise at the solstice confirms the intent of the architects, as the light hits the stones in a sequence that reveals a sophisticated calendar carved directly into the earth. The site remains a silent testament to a lost intellectual peak in human history, where the movement of the stars was translated into permanent stone monuments. The Carnac stones were already standing for 1,500 years before the first lintel was placed at Stonehenge, serving as a massive solar observatory on a scale that has never been replicated. This structure is older than the Great Pyramid of Giza by 5 centuries, yet it functions with the precision of a modern Swiss watch for exactly 17 minutes once a year. Newgrange sits in the lush valley of the River Boyne in County Meath, Ireland, appearing at first glance as a massive grass-covered mound encircled by 97 enormous curbstones. It is a passage tomb dating back to 3200 BC. A period when humanity supposedly lacked complex mathematical tools or advanced engineering knowledge. The mound itself spans over 80 meters in diameter and reaches a height of 12 meters, constructed from 200,000 tons of earth and stone. What makes this site a profound archaeological anomaly is not its scale, but its sophisticated relationship with the cosmos. Above the main entrance sits a small, inconspicuous opening, known as the roof box. For 5,000 years, this narrow gap has served a singular, calculated purpose. At dawn on the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, a single beam of light penetrates the roof box and travels 19 meters down a perfectly straight stone passage. The light stretches across the floor until it illuminates the very back of the cruciform chamber, turning the darkness into a golden glow. This event is not a coincidence of geography, but the result of deliberate, high-level architectural planning that required decades of precise astronomical observations. The builders had to calculate the exact angle of the rising sun and align a 19-meter corridor of heavy stone to match that trajectory, with zero margin for error. The interior remains bone dry even after 5 millennia of Irish rain, because the stones were placed with a slight outward tilt and grooved to channel water away from the center. The exterior is faced with white quartz and dark cobbles, creating a stark, shimmering contrast against the green hills of the Boyne Valley. Massive stones at the entrance are carved with intricate triple spirals and geometric patterns. Yet these symbols remain undeciphered, offering no written explanation for how a Stone Age society achieved such geometric perfection. The structural integrity is so absolute that the roof has never collapsed, and the light still hits its mark every December with mathematical certainty. These builders possessed a deep understanding of the solar cycle and structural physics long before the rise of the great Mediterranean civilizations. They left behind no records of their names or their language, leaving only this silent stone instrument that continues to track the stars with haunting accuracy. "18 levels of stone corridors descend 85 meters into the volcanic tuff of Cappadocia, creating a vertical labyrinth that defies the technological limitations of the 8th century before our era. Derinkuyu is not merely a collection of caves, but a sophisticated subterranean metropolis engineered to sustain 20,000 people in total isolation from the surface world. The sheer precision of the excavation suggests a level of geological understanding that seems impossible for a civilization working with simple iron chisels and oil lamps. Thousands of tons of rock were removed to create living quarters, stables, churches, and storage rooms. Yet the structural integrity of the soft stone remains flawless after nearly 3,000 years. There are no signs of catastrophic collapses or structural failures, despite the immense pressure of the earth above. The most baffling feature is the ventilation system, consisting of 52 main shafts that reach the deepest levels to provide a constant flow of fresh air. Even at the lowest point, nearly 300 feet underground, the oxygen levels remain stable without the use of mechanical fans or modern atmospheric sensors. The builders calculated the natural convection of air currents with such accuracy that the temperature remains a steady 13 degrees Celsius year-round. Water was supplied through a separate system of wells that did not connect to the surface, preventing any potential enemies from poisoning the supply from above. Massive circular stone doors, weighing up to 500 kilograms each, could be rolled across the passages to seal off entire sections. Yet they were designed to be operated by a single person from the inside. These stone wheels fit their tracks with such minimal clearance that they are virtually impossible to move from the outer side. Over 600 hidden entrances were camouflaged among the surface rocks and dwellings, making the city invisible to anyone passing through the valley. Archaeologists have identified complex oil presses and massive vats for wine production located deep within the rock, indicating that life underground was organized and permanent rather than a temporary refuge. The mathematical precision required to align 18 floors of rooms and tunnels without the benefit of surface surveying tools remains a silent paradox. Every corridor is carved with a slight incline or curve to manage weight distribution and airflow, showing an advanced grasp of architectural physics. While the Phrygians and later Christians utilized the space, the identity of the original architects who pierced the first levels into the bedrock remains an unsolved mystery. Until 1994, the scientific consensus held that organized religion was a byproduct of the agricultural revolution, appearing only after humans settled into permanent farming communities. Göbekli Tepe, hidden beneath a mound in southeastern Turkey for nearly 12 millennia, completely overturned this fundamental timeline of human development. This massive stone complex dates back to approximately 9,600 years before the Common Era, making it 7,000 years older than the invention of writing and 6,000 years older than Stonehenge. It stands as the oldest known monumental structure on the planet, built by nomadic hunter-gatherers who, according to traditional history, lacked the social hierarchy and technical tools required for such a project. The site consists of massive T-shaped limestone pillars arranged in circles, some reaching heights of 5.5 meters and weighing up to 20 tons. These monoliths are not mere rough stones, but are intricately carved with high-relief sculptures of lions, scorpions, vultures, and foxes, displaying a level of artistic sophistication that seems impossible for the pre-pottery Neolithic period. The sheer scale of the construction suggests that hundreds of people had to be organized, fed, and directed toward a single goal long before the first seeds of wheat were ever planted nearby. The landscape around the site offers a stark, dusty vista of rolling hills, where the limestone bedrock provided the raw material for these prehistoric architects. The precision of the carvings and the engineering required to transport these blocks from nearby quarries without wheels or pack animals remains a profound mystery. Archaeologists have found no evidence of domestic houses or trash pits near the pillars, suggesting this was a purely ritual space, a cathedral on a hill for a people who had not yet learned to build a village. The most unsettling aspect of the site is not its construction, but its disappearance. Around 8,000 years before the Common Era, the people who used this temple did not simply abandon it to the elements. They meticulously and intentionally buried the entire complex under thousands of tons of clean earth and refuse, creating the artificial hill that preserved it for 10,000 years. This act of ritual concealment required almost as much effort as the original building process. Yet the motivation behind hiding their greatest achievement remains entirely unexplained. The site was silenced by its own creators, leaving behind a massive stone puzzle that suggests civilization began not with a plow, but with a temple. European astronomers reached a precision of 0.03 of a degree in stellar orientation only in the late 1700s. Yet the Great Pyramid of Giza achieved an error margin of less than 0.05 degrees over 4,500 years ago. This massive structure, rising 146 meters above the plateau, aligns with true north more accurately than the Royal Observatory at Greenwich did during the Enlightenment. The sheer scale of the engineering defies conventional explanations for the Bronze Age, as the monument consists of 2,300,000 limestone and granite blocks. Each individual stone weighs an average of 2.5 tons, with some massive ceiling beams in the inner chambers reaching 80 tons, all fitted together with joints so tight that a razor blade cannot pass between them. The geometry of the base is equally baffling, as the four sides have a maximum difference in length of only 58 millimeters, creating a near-perfect square over a distance of 230 meters. Deep within the core, narrow shafts rise at specific angles, pointing directly toward the constellations of Orion and Draco as they appeared in the ancient sky. These are not mere ventilation ducts, but precise astronomical instruments carved through solid rock to track the movement of the stars with mathematical rigor. The builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of the Earth's dimensions, as the ratio of the pyramid's perimeter to its height reflects the mathematical constant pi to a degree of accuracy that would not be formally defined for another 2 millennia. Sunlight and shadow interact with the 8-sided geometry of the faces, a feature visible only from the air during the equinoxes, revealing a level of structural complexity hidden from the casual observer. The logistical feat of quarrying, transporting, and lifting these millions of stones remains a technical enigma that modern construction projects would struggle to replicate without heavy machinery. Every measurement within the complex suggests a mastery of geodesy and physics that sits outside the expected timeline of human development. The convergence of perfect cardinal alignment, stellar tracking shafts, and microscopic structural tolerances makes the theory of simple tools and trial and error statistically impossible. The intricate relief on this 5-ton stone slab appears to depict a technological system far beyond the reach of the 7th century. When archaeologists first opened the hidden tomb of King Pakal in the heart of the Chiapas jungle, they encountered a limestone lid that challenged every established notion of Mayan history. The carving shows a man leaning forward in a complex apparatus, his hands appearing to manipulate levers and his feet resting on what look like control pedals. In the 1960s, researchers noted that the proportions of the central figure and the surrounding mechanical elements almost perfectly mirror the internal configuration of a modern Gemini space capsule. Every line and curve seems to serve a functional purpose, from the breathing apparatus connected to the pilot's nose to the stylized flames or exhaust gases erupting from the base of the structure. This massive monolith, carved in 683 AD, measures nearly 4 meters in length and remains the most controversial artifact in the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City. The level of detail achieved by the Mayan craftsmen suggests a blueprint rather than a purely artistic vision, as the symmetry of the internal components follows a rigid logic of engineering. The surface of the limestone is covered in deep, precise grooves that define the contours of what many interpret as a combustion chamber and a series of cooling pipes. Light hitting the relief at an angle reveals the sheer scale of the work, where the central figure occupies a position that minimizes the gravitational forces of a high-speed ascent. The density of the symbols creates a visual paradox where ancient mythology and futuristic technology overlap without a clear boundary. Traditional scholars maintain that the image represents the king's descent into the underworld along the trunk of the world tree. Yet the presence of specific mechanical details, like the articulated joints of the frame and the directional nozzles at the bottom, continues to fuel the theory of ancient contact. The physical weight of the slab ensured it remained undisturbed for over 1,000 years, preserving a scene that looks less like a ritual and more like a technical manual for a journey beyond the atmosphere. Even the posture of the ruler, with his spine curved and knees pulled toward his chest, matches the exact ergonomic requirements of a pilot enduring high acceleration. While the official explanation links every element to the Maya cosmos, the visual similarity to a rocket engine remains so striking that it forced a re-evaluation of how we interpret ancient iconography. This single piece of stone exists as a bridge between two incompatible worlds, functioning simultaneously as a sacred funerary lid and a detailed schematic of a machine that should not have existed for another 13 centuries. The debate persists because the Mayan interpretation of a soul descending into the earth and the modern interpretation of a pilot ascending into the stars utilize the exact same geometric language. 24 meters in height, 134 massive stone columns, and not a single modern crane in sight. The great hypostyle hall of the Karnak Temple in Luxor, Egypt, stands as a silent challenge to the linear progression of human engineering history. While the vast complex spans over 100 hectares, it is this specific forest of sandstone pillars that defies conventional explanations of Bronze Age capabilities. Each central column measures 3.5 meters in diameter, stretching upward to support stone beams that seem to hover against the desert sky. The sheer scale of the construction suggests a level of structural analysis and load distribution that theoretically did not exist in 1250 BCE. Architects today look at the precision of the architraves and find a mathematical rigor that matches the complexity of Renaissance cathedrals built nearly 3 millennia later. The landscape of Carnac is not merely a collection of ruins. It is a massive lithic computer designed with astronomical precision. The main axis of the temple aligns perfectly with the sunset on the day of the summer solstice, a feat requiring long-term observation and advanced surveying tools. The textures of the stone remain sharp, showing where multi-ton blocks were fitted together with gaps smaller than a human hair. Sunlight filters through the remaining clerestory windows, illuminating the deep relief carvings that cover every square inch of the vertical surfaces. Yet the mystery lies not in the art, but in the physics of the assembly. To lift a 70-ton block of solid stone to the height of a 6-story building requires more than just raw manpower. It requires an understanding of mechanics, leverage, and friction that remains largely undocumented in the surviving papyri of the era. The sheer density of the columns creates a disorienting sensation of being inside a petrified forest, where the canopy is made of solid rock. Scholars have proposed ramps of mud, brick, and sand, but the volume of material needed to reach such heights would have buried the entire temple, creating a secondary logistical problem as massive as the construction itself. Every shadow cast by the pillars at noon points to a sophisticated grasp of geometry that allowed the builders to maintain perfect verticality across such a massive area. The site remains a paradox of ancient labor and impossible results, where the weight of the materials exceeds the known technological limits of the people who moved them. Despite centuries of archaeological study and numerous attempts to model the construction process, the exact method used to elevate and position the 70-ton architraves atop these towering pillars has never been successfully replicated in any modern experiment. The heaviest worked stone in human history lies embedded in the foundation of a wall, defying every known engineering logic of the ancient world. Located in the Bekaa Valley of modern Lebanon, the archaeological site of Baalbek presents a structural paradox that modern cranes would struggle to resolve. While the Roman Empire later claimed this ground to build the magnificent Temple of Jupiter between the 1st and 3rd centuries, they did so upon a platform of stones that dwarfs their own architectural achievements. At the base of the complex sits the Trilithon, a trio of massive limestone blocks where each individual piece weighs approximately 800 tons. These megalithics are not merely resting on the ground. They were transported from a quarry nearly 1 kilometer away and elevated to a height of 8 meters to form a perfectly level terrace. The precision is unsettling, as the joints between these 1,000-ton blocks are so tight that a razor blade cannot be inserted between them. Further down in the nearby quarry lies the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, a monolithic rectangular block weighing roughly 1,000 tons, followed by an even larger discovery recently unearthed that reaches an estimated 1,650 tons. This massive slab was carved, squared, and nearly detached from the bedrock, yet it remains in situ, abandoned for reasons no historian can definitively explain. The sheer scale of these stones creates a sensory disconnect, where the human eye struggles to process the volume of a single rock that exceeds the weight of 3 Boeing 747 aircraft combined. Every theory regarding wooden rollers, ramps, or thousands of slaves falls short when calculating the friction and structural integrity required to move such concentrated mass over uneven terrain. The Roman records, usually meticulous in documenting their engineering triumphs, remain strangely silent regarding the construction of this specific foundation. The stones of the trilithon possess a weathered texture and a chemical patina significantly older than the Roman columns standing directly above them. This physical evidence suggests a chronological layering where a far more ancient and technologically advanced culture prepared the site before the classical world even emerged. The site functions as a massive lithic puzzle where the largest pieces are at the bottom, supporting smaller, less sophisticated masonry on top. Archaeologists have found no tools or machinery in the strata that correspond to the force needed to lift 1,000 tons vertically. The landscape is dominated by these silent, gray giants that seem to belong to a lost era of heavy lifting that vanished without leaving a manual. The Roman builders did not create the foundation of Baalbek. They simply found it and built their world on top of a platform they could never have moved themselves. Geological analysis has confirmed a detail that defies the conventional logic of Neolithic logistics, as the smaller bluestones, forming the inner circle of Stonehenge, originated from the Preseli Hills in Wales, over 250 kilometers away from their final resting place in Wiltshire. This specific choice of material presents a profound historical puzzle, because the builders bypassed thousands of tons of perfectly suitable sandstone located in the immediate vicinity to procure these specific volcanic rocks from a distant mountain range. Each of these 80 bluestones weighs up to 4 tons, and their transport required navigating treacherous mountain terrain, dense forests, and open water long before the invention of the wheel or advanced sailing vessels. Modern attempts to recreate this journey using period-accurate technology have repeatedly ended in failure, with heavy replicas sinking into the mud or slipping beneath the waves of the Bristol Channel. Yet 5,000 years ago, this massive logistical operation was executed with surgical precision. The landscape of the Salisbury Plain is dominated by these towering monoliths, which stand against the gray English sky as a testament to an engineering capability that seems mismatched with the primitive tools available during the 3rd millennium before Christ. When viewed from above, the arrangement reveals a sophisticated understanding of geometry and structural balance, where massive lintels are secured to upright pillars using mortise and tenon joints, a technique typically reserved for fine woodworking rather than massive stonemasonry. The surface of the stones bears the marks of relentless shaping, smoothed down to create a visual uniformity that masks the sheer physical labor required to drag them across 1/3 of the British landmass. The chemical signature of the rocks leaves no room for doubt about their origin, forcing a realization that the prehistoric architects possessed a motivation strong enough to overcome impossible physical barriers. The site remains a silent witness to a level of social organization and technical mastery that contradicts the standard image of nomadic tribal life. Every new excavation layer suggests that the stones were moved, rearranged, and maintained with a level of dedication that lasted for centuries. The closer researchers look at the microscopic structure of the transport routes, the more the mystery deepens regarding the true purpose of such an exhausting endeavor. The paradox of Stonehenge grows more complex with every scientific breakthrough, as the precision of the construction continues to outpace our understanding of the people who built it. No wheel, no iron tools, and no draft animals were used to move thousands of tons of granite to a ridge 2,400 meters above sea level. Yet not a single landslide has occurred here in over 5 centuries. Machu Picchu sits perched between 2 jagged Andean peaks in the Cusco region of Peru, where torrential rains and seismic activity should have reclaimed these structures long ago. While the visible stone walls often capture the focus of modern observers, the true engineering marvel lies hidden beneath the surface in a complex network of subterranean infrastructure. The Inca architects solved a problem that continues to plague modern civil engineering in tropical mountain ranges: how to prevent a massive stone city from sliding off a precipice during the rainy season. They constructed a sophisticated drainage system consisting of 130 stone channels that snake through the foundations and plazas, diverting nearly 60% of all rainfall away from the structural supports. This underground labyrinth was designed with such precision that it functions perfectly to this day, maintaining the integrity of the soil and preventing the saturation that leads to catastrophic slope failure. The sheer scale of this invisible achievement is difficult to grasp from a distance, as the city appears to float effortlessly among the clouds. Below the polished terraces lies a layered filter of topsoil, sandy gravel, and large granite rocks, a geological sandwich engineered to manage the flow of water with surgical accuracy. This level of geotechnical mastery matches or exceeds contemporary standards for building in high-risk seismic zones. Yet it was executed by a civilization that supposedly lacked the fundamental mechanical advantages of the Old World. The granite blocks were shaped and positioned to act as a singular, flexible entity, capable of dancing during earthquakes rather than shattering. Modern sensors placed throughout the site confirm that the drainage capacity is still capable of handling even the most extreme weather events without causing erosion. This hidden skeleton of the city proves that the builders possessed a deep, empirical understanding of fluid dynamics and soil mechanics that remains largely unexplained by the historical record. Every staircase and every temple serves a dual purpose, acting as both a sacred space and a vital component of a hydro-engineering masterpiece. The site remains a silent witness to a level of technical sophistication that feels entirely out of place for the 15th century. Machu Picchu stands as a definitive testament to the fact that ancient builders understood the relationship between stone and earth with a clarity that modern science is only beginning to decode through advanced thermal imaging and structural analysis.